record in the cloud. Okay. So today is July 24th, Wednesday, July 24th, and on this monthly call, we have the honor and pleasure of having Kevin and Fred from Florida joining us. And I first reached out to Kevin, because Fred was away, to help us speak to us about really how do you start to bring this work into your community? How do you share it? Who do you reach out to? What are things he's done that have worked? What are things that he's done that haven't worked? And for Fred to do the same, because they're in a chapter, they have a chapter in Florida that Fred started, but prior to Fred starting that chapter, Kevin had been very active already down there doing work. And so it was kind of a beautiful connection between the two of them, because Fred had the capacity and location for a chapter, and Kevin had a lot of connections as well. So I'm going to start with Kevin. Fred, please jump in any point to emphasize, enunciate, add, offer counter different thoughts about it. And as I said, anyone on the call with a question, you can just unmute yourself. And Marilyn, I think to do that on the phone, you hit *6. So Kevin, what I wanted you to talk about first is just how initially, before you even had a chapter, how it was you started to connect with folks and share some of the work of the NSP. So I'm going to unmute you, Kevin. And like I said, Fred, please jump in. Kevin, do we simultaneously? There you go.
Okay. So hi. So the first piece, and again, the most important piece is talking to people. So you're talking to people and joining organizations, going to meetings on a regular basis. There's lots of groups out there, the biggest, and that are all working in their own silos. The biggest opportunity area, and what happens a lot is people don't cross over, and everyone is working on it, be there. If it's issues or causes, they stay in their silo, and very few people go to multiple events. So I found myself going out to multiple events and being able to connect those organizations, because there's a lot of similarity in again, the new bottom line in having something besides corporate profits be the driver of the society, and all these groups are trying to do it in their own little way, and they're not talking to each other. So I see the opportunity of the new bottom line to bring that is to talk about about what we have in common, about what we have to focus on the similarities, and not worried about the differences.
So Kevin, what were some of the first groups or the most fruitful groups that you reached out to?
So a good story is we started after the election of Trump, we started a indivisible group, and most of the people that joined the group had never had any political experience. They were middle of the road to conservatives, and over the last 3.5 years, the education process of we've had bi-weekly meetings, and one of the people who was a middle of the road, again, at best, a moderate Democrat, was last night I was at a meeting, and she was offering to lead a workshop on nonviolent resistance and how do you handle it when you get arrested. You can't make that stuff up, to see, and honestly, they don't even know what's happening. I've made it a point, part of going to these different groups and being a conduit of information. This is an educational piece, so it's educating, and you don't educate people. You have to educate them. You have to start where they're at. And again, most of these people, their political acronym was on the low side. They didn't know a lot. Even the smart ones, it wasn't. They just didn't have the whole picture. So, bringing it to them and helping them connect the dots,
When you were at these invisible meetings, did you have opportunities to share or take opportunities, I might say, to share some of like the new bottom line, the SRA or the Global Marshall Plan or any of those? And how were they?
Yes. And part of the process, what we did at these meetings is I showed them how easy it was to invite candidates who are running for office and how there's an intimidation factor. People are afraid to talk to these people, and I would just call them up and ask them to come over, and we'd have a living room, and there'd be 15 or 20 people, and I was always able to talk about the new bottom line, to talk about the environmental and social responsibility to the candidates. The candidates knew where I was going with it. The people are like, again, it was a slow educational process. But yes, I brought that up on a regular basis. So it's just doing it. It's not hard. It's just doing it.
So one of the things when we spoke yesterday, when we spoke yesterday, I guess it was, or the day before, you talked about the fact that you don't really need, because you started with just you until Fred started the chapter. So you spoke to the fact that you don't really need a huge army of people, so to speak, that you can have just a few people who are willing to get engaged.
You need a core group of people, and Fred was. We had put on a immigration event, the detention of the children at the border, Lights to Liberty, on July 12th. They were nationwide, but we did one down here, and we had about 700 people show up, and the main group behind it was an indivisible group, and we were NSP also was one of the co-sponsors, and we were just talking after, and this group has 5 or 6 active members, and they were able to put on this, and by showing up and by co-sponsoring events and being active on social media, our NSP chapter here has a place in the county, in the community. People ask questions about us. People want to know what we're still embryonic right now, but we've planted a seed out there that people are aware of, and it again, even there's not a group around that has masses of people. Probably the biggest group around that we have that's actually growing people is the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. We had a meeting Sunday. We had about 50 people there, young people, and I would strongly recommend going to those meetings if you can, because at least here, the demographic is different than it's a demographic I haven't seen in a long time. It's skewed young, it's skewed male, and it's skewed people of color, where most of the organizations here are the opposite on all those areas.
Interesting. Okay. And so, Fred, do you want to jump in for a minute and just share so Kevin, you've been doing this work for how long? As part of the NSP, like kind of with the NSP, let's say. I know you've been a really long time before that.
Yeah. I met you guys at Sister Giant. So when did you come there?
Oh, right. I want to say, that was after Trump, or that was before Trump?
I don't know. So 4 or 5 years. I mean,
somewhere right around then. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was before him. I'm not sure. Okay. So, and then Kevin, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you. We're recording it so you can hear the beginning later.
Okay.
And you are welcome to jump in with questions at any time. For right now, I'm just going to mute everyone to keep the background noise down.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So good to see you. Okay, so Fred, I would love for you to jump in and share kind of when you started your chapter, and maybe for the two of you to talk about how that has bolstered the work, maybe some of the challenges, how you go about doing that. Some of what Kevin and I spoke about on Monday, Fred, was how the chapter's partnered with other organizations and how that's been helpful.
Right. So I guess it was last year after I took the training that I decided to pursue a meeting, an opening meeting and stuff. I have, as you said earlier, I have a base people, and I have a place for us to meet. I've been a minister of a church for 15 years now, so I had a group of people who knew what I thought, and so they were interested in coming. So I think the first meeting we had, Kevin, we had what, like 25, 30 people? Is that right?
Yep.
So so I got interested in what I did is I decided to focus. I decided what did I want to focus upon, and what I really liked about the NSP was the solution. It was solution oriented, and so I concentrated on the ESRP as the starting point, the foundation of the chapter that I wanted to form, because it fits with our congregation. It fit with me, and it was a solution-oriented deal. A lot of people want to change, but they don't know what to do. And so with the concrete options or solutions, it was easier to talk about. Because we can talk about it and people will say, yes, 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 we need a new bottom line, we need this and that. But when you can say, well, this is, a solution to it, and this is what we're promoting. And so that caught the interest. It was very, when Kevin, the first call that I joined on and Kevin was on it, we met and had lunch, and Kevin has the community connections. I had people connections. And so we started the group. We started meeting on a monthly basis. Our focus really right now, I would say, is still getting to be known in the community. And the way we do that is we've been looking at any place we could do tabling opportunities, that we would set up a table and people to start recognizing us. We went and visited the congressman. We have we have co-hosted other events. We invited the Socialist Democrats of America to come to one of our meetings and give a presentation. And all of this was as a way of just getting ourselves out in the community. And we have a core group of people. I wasn't at the last meeting because I wasn't in town, but this next month we have a workshop, Be Part of the Solution Through Stories, that we're going to be presenting. And this is the first time we're going to take the workshop out of our church, and we're taking it to another place called Sacred Lands, which is an ancient Indian space. And they've offered to let us use their facilities. So I wanted to get it out of the church so we could, because a lot of times people don't want to come to the church and stuff. And if we can get out in the community, we think that would be more successful. We've got a Facebook page. We got our email list going. We're looking at social media. We think that's the way to do it. One of the things we attempt to do on our Facebook page is, because a lot of times people, I'm amazed at people, oh, I didn't know that was going on, or I didn't know, what is this? And so we have said, well, come to our Facebook page, and if we know of things going on, we're going to post it there. So this is a way to get people starting to get in and connect and stuff like that. Again,
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of social media. And again, I mean, I know I'm a neophyte at it. I know very little. I mean, the more I'm around, some of these people, but it's the way it's I'm a let's call up people and knock on doors kind of person. That's my background. But this social media, man, just get some kids, and you can reach so many people in such a in a short time. You can't stress that, and the other thing which Fred provided the opportunity for is we have regular meetings, regular monthly meetings, so people, you have to there's a training process that connects to the educational process, that this is when you have them, this is when you have them, this is when you have them, and they come, and again, they come with the same questions. How do I talk to the person who doesn't agree with me? How do I talk to my brother-in-law who supports Trump? I mean, every time. So you have to go back through the training and go back on the on the basics, and listen with empathy and find out where they're coming from. And
nice. So one of the things that we spoke about also, Kevin, was kind of in this historical moment, there's so much resistance efforts, understandably so, that are really important. And resistance is not enough. And it's definitely not the only way to transform society. We need lots of different ways. And Pam, I'll get to you in 1 second. I just noticed your hand. Thank you. So one of the things that we spoke about that I asked you to speak to is how you weave in, because a lot of these groups are resistance-based groups, how do you weave into those efforts the long-term visions and proposals?
So this is a constant conversation, and I've had a couple people just in the last couple of days. I noticed that maybe it was after talking to you, Kat, where people said, "Oh my God, I come to these meetings to see you, to hear you talk about vision, to hear you talk about, And I guess I do it on a regular basis because that's just what, because it doesn't make any sense being against anything and resisting. I mean, Fred said it. We have to present a solution, constantly present a solution in a very loving, positive way. I mean, this is not, we can't be against. I don't know. It's again, probably it comes second nature to me. So I struggle, but it's listening to the people, and everyone wants to. Not everyone, but there's a lot of people that are going to ask you, I want to slam this person. I just want to punch him in the mouth. Well, that's really not going to, it may be even just a good thing, but it doesn't accomplish anything. So again, articulate the vision, one person at a time. That's my experience. So.
Right.
Yeah. And we focus on the vision and not on Trump or anything like that. We feel like that's kind of useless. In fact, I asked that we take out of the brochure the Trumpism deal, because it just the idea of the new bottom line appeals across all lines if they're willing to listen to it. I mean, the biggest resistance is, no way it's going to happen, but we have ways of addressing that too. So,
and the other point which I continually talk about is you don't want to deal with the symptoms. You have to get to the causes, and Trump is a symptom, and all these resistance movements are against symptoms. When you get to the cause, which is an educational process, which takes time, it's not a 30-second soundbite. It's read these books. It's have these book clubs. It's go to these lectures. If we're going to deal with it, this is the level that we need to deal with it. If if you change at a level of cause, you just have another cause come up, another person.
Right.
You haven't affected anything.
I wanted to interject because that comment about the defeating Trumpism thing. I had an experience of, I actually met with my own spiritual community this weekend, and they had a strong reaction to that for a couple of reasons. Like both because people don't even want to, there's this kind of like pushback of, I don't even want to think about him or talk about him or nothing. And also we happen to have a few congregants who support, they're not rabid supporters, but they support their Republicans, and they don't want to, that would put them off. So they had a strong reaction to it, and are wanting to, there's so many, like you said, there's so many different groups. They're looking at something from Agent, the Association of Global New Thought, and something that comes out of a Buddhist tradition to embrace. Just that line in the brochure did make them uncomfortable, and I think we had a little discussion about resistance, and I like to think about let's persist in the solution instead of resisting, because there's the idea that what you resist persists. So it's just, anyway, I had that experience.
So we have a brochure, the same brochure that doesn't have the Trumpism on the front. So
oh, good.
Yeah, and that should also be on the website, both websites, actually, the NSP main website, but also the training website that you all were in. So I'll make myself a note, though, somewhere. Here we go. I'll make myself a note to make sure it's uploaded, so you can access it, because we do have it. We have both, and it depends who we're speaking to, which one we use sometimes, frankly. But I have definitely more recently brought the one that doesn't say Trump on it for some of the same reasons. Depends who I'm speaking to.
It didn't bother the Indivisible group at all, of course. So
right,
yeah.
Right. So yeah, I'll make sure to load up the other one if it's not. It's the same brochure, other than that front page, than those top few lines. Did somebody else have a question? I wasn't sure if there was another question. Not yet. Okay. So what have been some of the challenges and some of the successes?
So the challenges are to keep positive. It's a slow process. I mean, this is and to keep consistent is the challenge. Consistently attend the meetings. I mean, and again, one of the things that help with that, and these multiple groups that I attend, more and more people ask me, so what is this NSP? What is going on with that? What's it about? So we've created by creating some visibility, we've created some interest and a place in the community. So the biggest challenge is detaching from the results, is this idea to have immediate results, that okay, what are we doing now? It's again, I look at it, my job is to just go out there and just keep on presenting this to people, and they'll get it as they get it. And I mean, looking for small wins, and for groups that we've collaborated with has given us that's another way which we've gotten credibility. I mean, in some of the groups we've collaborated with, legal women voters. I mean, how that's pretty easy. Right? No one can say anything about the Legal Women Voters. The Sierra Club we just did something with, pretty good, pretty easy, right? These are places that middle of the road people that you have an entree. You haven't, it's not the CPUSA that I'm, talking from. I'm coming from, collaborating on issues, and I'm able to bring, the new bottom line, and they're receptive to these things.
Great.
So the challenge is just doing the work. It's just doing the work.
I appreciate you speaking to the challenge of how do you find success when you're working for something that's so visionary. Mm-hmm. And and seeing incremental steps that might not, in the old bottom line, if you will, look like success or victories, but are steps along the journey. And having people say to you, we so appreciate you keep bringing a vision, is one of those incremental steps. And so it's important to make sure you're making notes of those incremental steps, because otherwise you'll lose it and you won't see them happening, and then you'll get discouraged. And in the starter guide, I do have a whole chart in the back that kind of, and you all have access to that, but it's spiritualprogressives.org/starter guide. But it does have like goals, and you can put as goals like have 5 more people be educated about this. You can be very incremental goals so that you can see, oh yeah, we reached 5 more people. We knocked on 5 doors. We put it out on Facebook and 20 people liked it. However, lots of different ways of measuring those successes.
Yeah, and Kevin's been really good at keeping us focused on that, because it's easy to get discouraged. And after the big startup, and then there was a dwindling, but we still have a good core group, I think. So it's the vision that he brings does help a lot. so because I have I knew there was a time when we had dropped off and the meetings weren't as well attended as they were to begin with, that I was like, oh no. Kevin says, we're doing good. And
so these same things happen with March for Our Lives. They happen with the Women's March. It's really easy to get people excited when, for a while, it's really hard to maintain that level of excitement. So this is where you get a core group that is willing to maintain. And if, I got bummed about this a couple months ago, and I went to one of my 30-year-old gurus and I'm like, what's going on with you guys? You were all here. Where did you all go? And he made a great point. He said the educational process that we went through for the first 2 years when we had, and we've educated those people. We've created a baseline so that the next time there's a push, those people will come on and we'll bring more people. And it was like, okay, that made a little bit of sense, on that you're not going to have people in the streets every day. You get them, but you've got them on the mailing list. You got them on your Facebook page. You got them. There's a lot of people that watch what we do. And I've had 2 instances where we, I live in a small town, at the local city council meeting where we passed a assault weapon measure and a green energy measure. And I was able to turn out, we were able to turn out 250 people and pack the chamber and have both issues passed. Now and then people are like, well, how come they're not coming to the meetings? Where are those people all the time? You're not going to have your core group that big. It only takes, a small group of dedicated people. But those people are there. They want to support them. They're busy. They have busy lives for whatever reason. So someone has to keep on doing it. Someone has to keep on pushing ahead, and someone has to be the vanguard of the revolution. We used to talk about it.
And so what we did is, instead of having monthly meetings, we decided to have a meeting every other month. And in between, we do some type of workshop. In June, we showed Knock Down the House. And it was hosted by NSP. And then, as I said, we're going to Sacred Land this next month. And just as a way to continue getting ourselves out there. Another big challenge is getting people to actually do something. so besides come to meetings, that's a challenge, and that's something that I have to let go of, and just we do have a core group that does that. The other thing is, there's so many activist groups in our area and stuff that there's kind of a hierarchy with the leaders there, and getting introduced, introducing yourself to them has been somewhat challenging. I think it's just a matter of showing up and continuing to show up and get, and as I show up more, that they'll get to recognize me more. So
Nice. Anybody have who?
Yeah, I have to disagree. I honestly don't think there is a hierarchy. I think most of the organizations at least have democratic principles and ideals, and they have to and you have to call people on it if they're not doing it democratically. It has to go back to the body. So and I think you're right, Fred. The more you go, the more
Right.
People just assume. There's an assumption factor. And the more I go, the more things I attend, the bigger the people the bigger the people perceive the NSP to be. That's all it is. I mean, there's a huge perception issue, that, and that's all it is. Just showing up is like 90% of the battle.
Pam, did you have another question? I think I saw you unmute yourself.
Oh, well, just
or comment.
I'm in the middle of the month. I'm going to speak to our Interfaith Alliance community, and I'm going to bring the brochure that doesn't have the defeat Trumpism part to it. But there's a couple of spiritual communities in town who are super progressive, are really, really active in immigration, taking immigrants in. I'm in Santa Fe, so we're right close to that, and people have a lot of interest in climate change too. So I think those are two key areas where I think the NSP will be really helpful. Although I'm noticing that I'm in a position where I work full time and my disabled sister's needing a lot of help. So I don't know how much time I have, but I do still feel passionately about a chapter in Santa Fe, and I think that there's enough really active people. I was noticing that our indivisible community still, it's really gotten small, still pretty mighty, but they're not able to get permits to host protests anymore. They just don't have the funds for that. So the thing to do is team up with other groups to pull that off. And when I talked with the president of the Interfaith Alliance, it was at one of those Lights for Liberty events, and Rabbi Neil Omswich, he gave a very passionate talk during that, and there were so many really progressive speakers for that. Someone from the Dreamers Project, somebody who wants to abolish all prisons, beyond prison reform. Let's have no prison, which would fit in with the NSP. So it was really a nice event, and I made that connection with him, and so I'm going to meet with a whole bunch of spiritual leaders and see if we can get some people who would be interested in this same thing. I think that this is a good community for it, so I'm going to see what happens.
Right.
I think that's great, Pam. We have the two areas where we're working on right now actively. One is a Clean Energy Green New Deal coalition, and the other one is an interfaith community led by the faith community on the immigration issue. And it's, again, I like both of those issues because they're low-hanging fruit to go in. It's in the progressive community, it's threatening to talk about the NSP and to be a leader in both of those coalitions. And the more, because we have to expose people to it, and again, even the leaders of other groups need to be exposed it's a process. So joining in coalition with them on these broader issues, immigration and carbon fuels, which are again hard to argue against, it not only gives visibility, it's a process where we can educate people.
Those are both great issues to talk about our concrete solutions, in addition to kind of talking about the new bottom line as an overarching umbrella that encompasses both of them. Each of them have ways that we address them. The ESRA addresses the climate issue as well as government corruption. And then the Global Marshall Plan really does tackle and starts to talk about the fundamental basis on which all these immigration issues, how they've come to be issues, and kind of changes we can make so that people have the opportunities they need where they are, and so that they're safe where they are. Because most people don't actually want to flee. Actually, by and large, want to stay where they are.
And the privatized prisons is a huge, giant problem with all of the horrific abuses in the border. It's the same groups of people running those detention centers, and there's nobody, there's just nobody really keeping tabs on that closely.
Well, and that's where the ESRA, right? The second clause of the ESRA also tackles that, because they all make more than $50 million, I'm sure. So.
Right. New Mexico has a new governor who I think is, as well as education, she's tackling the prison, or privatized prisons. I believe that there's a energy for that. So in our state anyway.
So one thing you can do in addition to bringing the ESRA as a large constitutional amendment is to bring it as a local ordinance or a statute or even a resolution on a local issue that talks about, on a local level, any corporation that's operating in our state has to show a satisfactory of environmental and social responsibility. Any corporation that we contract with as a state or as a county or as a city has to show a satisfactory history. And so there's local ways to tackle it also.
So talking to the mayor and the city council and as well, and I'm right. Fortunately, in Santa Fe, the capital is right there, and it's really accessible. So, I'm looking at new candidates for our congressional district, and I actually met Valerie Plame and spoke with her. But you never know how far that's going to go with someone like that. And I actually know somebody else who's running personally, which is kind of cool. So I don't know about speaking with individual congressional candidates or Congress people about it.
It's totally worthwhile, because one of the advantages of running for office that people have is if they get enough support, they have a platform, and whether they win or not, how they use that platform is really what's most valuable. And so if you get somebody who you know or who you can build a connection with that would talk about a new bottom line and use that language and talk about the need to assess businesses to the extent that they honor environmental and social responsibility and address immigration from the core issues from which it arises, then they're basically using their platform to talk about what we talk about.
Yeah,
so
whether they win or not, that platform and that voice and getting that into the media then starts to shift the discourse in the community in which you're located, so that rather than only looking at incremental changes or resistance, somebody's actually speaking about visionary long-term policies. Just like Bernie started talking, sorry, Kevin, one sec, talking about Medicare for all or $15. Now we're like there, right? Now these discussions are mainstream. 3 years ago, they weren't. And so the more we put these ideas out there, particularly this historical moment when there are people talking about bigger issues, then we don't know where we'd be 3 years from now on these issues. Go ahead, Kevin.
So I've continually, since this, talked to congressional candidates on a regular basis. There was 3 of them in the primary, and I mean, I would call them up, and they would end up calling me. It was really that I was there, and I talked about the Global Marshall Plan. I held them to that. I talked about the environmental social response. I mean, I gave them all this stuff, and how could you argue against this? And at first I would do it privately, and then in smaller groups, and then and actually, I mean, I've never joined the Democratic Party, but I attend some of their functions, and I would say I'm known. I'm known there as, whatever they think it is. But they do come to me for things too. They do ask me things. They do see where I'm going on it. I'm not in the mainstream of the party, but I've called them out, every single one of their candidates, on these issues on a regular basis, in person, through social media, and again, these candidates have called me up, at 10 o'clock at night, and they want to say, either give me a break, or what do you really mean, or could you explain it to me more? So again, this is just a process of just doing it. These people are accessible. Do it. I mean,
Okay.
it's not hard. It's not hard.
Well, it's one of the things I love about.
Whoops. Hang on. Start again, Pam. You muted yourself somehow.
It's been wonderful to hear Marianne Williamson and Pete Buttigieg talk about spiritual issues. Finally, so it's not just all on the right, where it's, to me, distorted anyway. So it's just lovely to have that happen. And so I keep telling people that I meet who are running for office, we need to at least talk about values. We can't leave that out. It can't just be all dry policy and things. Let's talk about what we stand for, because we have to fight what's going on, how things are being co-opted. Oh, that was one of the wonderful things about Rabbi Neil's talk, was he's had Bible verses to talk, and he knew exactly how many times it was mentioned in Torah to take care of the stranger.
Love the stranger.
Right. So that's an important thing to be said, especially now.
More than anything else, 36 times.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to jump in with a question or a thought or?
Well, I am trying to get the word out. I have been. Most people I meet are receptive, and kind of, even Trump supporters are receptive to a better world and a better vision when it's presented to them. And but they just don't believe it's possible. I mean, what I get back from people is, no, that could never happen. Humans really aren't like that. And, they feel like if they were to trust in this new order, they would get burned. You know what I mean? If they went around and were more sharing, more loving, that they would ultimately, nice guys finish last. So, that's kind of the hurdle that is one of the hurdles anyway, that I have in my head, is getting people to have more faith that humans are really better than what some people think we are. I think a lot of people are kind of cynical about human behavior, including my son. My son's a college student, and he's a philosophy major at Union College. He's a great kid. He's been a sweetheart his whole life. But when I talk to him about human nature and what he really thinks about humans and stuff, I mean, he is a little cynical. I gotta cover my ass. I've got to protect my own, and I'm not going to be the guy that gets burned. And and he kind of has a view of philosophy that's kind of where his head is at. And I'm trying to get away from that and giving him some books to read, and but that's what I'm encountering. So I am committed to this project, and I am going to look to get a chapter going. I'm involved with some other social change organizations. That Indivisible group I met, they of course they're all over, right? And I met with some people from a local chapter there and asked them if they'd be interested in joining something that I'm thinking about doing. And a couple of them were like, yeah, let me have some more information about it. So I'm going to follow up with them, and hopefully a couple of them will sign on. And hopefully I'll get some, I have a neighbor who's very progressive. Hopefully she'll be into it just for some emotional support. Just where it goes, my goal really is just to educate, kind of about the way humans, the way we are in different environments, like as people. And if, if we're in a really cutthroat environment, we act one way. And if we're in an open, sharing, loving environment, we're very different. So, and that's the thing, that's the point I really try to get across, is that we're not, it's not like we are anything. All we are is like a product of all these different forces acting on us. So, and those forces can change radically. I mean, and from, and that's what I really think the NSP is all about, is kind of like changing the environment, changing the forces, and getting to a healthier place. So, I'm excited, and just I'll keep you guys posted about how things are, how things are gonna, happen, if anything is happening. I mean, hopefully I'll get a response. I know it's a totally, it's very radical, these ideas, and I mean, they're not radical. The funny thing is that it's totally sane and totally reasonable ideas, but given the culture we live in, they're very radical ideas.
Right.
They're not crazy ideas. I mean, if you look at the ideas, they're not crazy. I mean, they're really, they make so much sense, but that's where we live right now, is that, people are,
So Cliff, when I had my first meeting, one of the things that really was well received was Rabbi Lerner's video when he's talking about that, and he talks about, don't be realistic, because that really, kind of struck people. It was like, yeah, okay, I get this, and it was just a good way to introduce that. To get beyond that, because that is something that that I get a lot, is that's just not realistic, and just to say, well, it is what people really want.
What I find appealing, and my approach is probably going to change a bunch as I learn in this process, but right now coming in, my approach really is going to be to talk about how our environment, how we live, is so determinative of who we are as people, and how healthy we are, and how happy we are, and kind of make the point that right now we live in a really unhealthy place. I mean, so in terms of a lot of metrics, and most of the metrics, I mean, in terms of, there's a tremendous amount of suffering right now. So, coming at it from that point of view, just kind of try to sell people that like a change is really necessary, and in everyone's interest, and then talking about like what the change should be, and and hopefully people will be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably what we should try to work for. And if they agree to that, maybe they'll sign on and participate.
You know what I found, and it just hit me now. It's not what you say; it's what you do. It's get out there and partner and do things, and attend the protests, attend the meetings, write the letters, make the phone calls. People watch what you do, and that gives a credibility way more powerful than what you say, because there's a lot of brilliant people out there that that theoretically understand this, and way better than me, but they don't do it. They sit and so doing the work where the rubber meets the road, making those calls, doing those mundane things that have to be doing to create coalitions, to create organizations. People see that. And I think that gives validity then to what you do. At least that's my experience.
It's got to start there, Kevin. I mean, you're right. It's going to start with me making calls. It's got to start that way. Otherwise, I'll be speaking to myself. But
And the other thing, I joined these organizations, and I I brought this message into the organization from the inside, which again, so it's create viability, get them to, have people trust you. And it's, when I was doing this before Fred came, before there was this thing, I was out there just carrying this message of the NSP. Something happened by having the monthly meetings, by having the place where I was able to go and bring these and tell these organizations that we can marry you up, that we have things in common. And that's working. That's, if that makes sense.
And it's also like giving them strength. I mean, being part of their community, being, supporting their activities, and
the same with
brotherhood, sisterhood. We're all in this together. So.
Every one of the candidates, the Democratic candidates here, I called them out on the Global Marshall Plan. I wanted to go over point by point. Would you be willing to sponsor this if I was going to support you, and you were elected?
Right. It's a tough sell, though. Were you successful?
That depends what success is. I mean, I walked into the county Democratic Party meeting the other night with a couple young people that I was working with, and every executive in the party came over to say hello to me. And I was like, and they were like, wow, how do you do this? I was like, it's a long story, but so, I mean, is that successful? I mean, I think there's something to it.
Because I wouldn't even ask. I mean, some just political suicide right now. And I wouldn't even, if I was meeting with my local representative, for Congress, I would probably not be saying, look, can you support this, endorse this publicly? But can you start thinking about these issues and thinking about, really what's in the interest of the country going forward and what we should be working towards? Because, they're politicians, and I mean, the way things are going to change is when there's a new consciousness.
Oh, and again, I don't want to get philosophical here, but we create the new consciousness by bringing
but
it there.
That's why I'm saying you're successful, Kevin. Even if it doesn't mean them agreeing to, like you said, just everyone saying hello to you and welcoming you into the community when they know what you stand for and what you espouse. You've connected with those people. You've done something wonderful. And they're embracing you, even if they're not signing on formally to your agenda, because they may, there are a lot of, they may not be a lot, just politically, it's suicide. And, there are things in human life that are beyond the ability that we can't do for political reasons or for social reasons. But just starting to create the consciousness is really important. I mean, really, really important. So, that's why the work you're doing is so important. Just by getting the message out and meeting with these people and getting them to think about it, because just by them thinking about it, it starts to change the consciousness.
So, Kat, I see Marilyn wants to talk.
Yeah, I was just about to ask her. Marilyn, I see that you're trying to jump in.
Yeah, hi. Okay, I just want to get my voice in. I know something about the Network of Spiritual Progressives. I think Michael Lerner and Kat, I think you were in Gainesville at least 10, 12 years ago to present something.
Michael would have been, I wouldn't have been, but
you weren't there then? Yeah, I thought you were. And you taught a course online, I think, with the Shift Network.
Yeah.
That I jumped in on too. So I mean, I know what you're saying, and I've always liked it. It's never felt like my piece of the pie to be somebody who promotes it, although that might change. When Kevin came on and started talking about, well, he joins all the groups, that's kind of what I do here in Gainesville. My base group is the Alachua Labor Coalition, which they work for things like living wage and affordable housing and health, getting universal health care. That's the committee I've been on. But also, I'm a member of the GEC, the Democratic Party, and, I have a a precinct, and I'm excited about that. That I have 3,000 people I'm responsible for. And before the election, and I'm relatively new, I walked the whole precinct for five or 6 weeks. I just, knocked on every door on my van list, and not for any particular candidate, but just to say I'm your connection with the Democratic Party. And just, I didn't carry it that far, but I want to deepen that connection. I'm also part of Indivisible, and lately I've been hooking in more with a group working with the climate crisis. So, I relate to what Kevin's saying. I'd like to bring, Labor Coalition, let's support the climate crisis event. And do you want to come to our, I'm good with getting people together, just like Kevin was describing. It seems nice to have that philosophic base, or, just kind of political goals like you have with the Global Marshall Plan and the IRSA. I just need to consider that a little more. But if you're needing something intercity, you guys, Fred and Kevin, maybe you want to connect with me here in Gainesville. I do know a lot of people in the political realm here. So, I'm just
Marilyn.
Developing. So,
Marilyn?
What's your email so that we can give it to Kevin and Fred?
Okay, my name, Marilyn Eisenberg, Marilyn.
Slow down. I'm not that fast.
I'm typing it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Eisenberg, Eisenberg.
Yep.
With a 9, the number 9 at the end, Marilyn Eisenberg 9 @gmail.com is my email. And if you want my phone,
into the chat. Yeah,
sure.
Show your phone.
352.
Yeah. Yes. 871-8763.
Be in
Great.
touch.
Thank you. So Marilyn, I hope that, Herbert, 1 second. I hope that you will look at the new bottom line, ESRA and Global Marshall Plan, and think about how you might
Incorporate it,
discourse in the different groups that you're already involved with, so that they're thinking in visionary, long-term strategic ways as well as resistance ways.
No, it's a good idea. I think a lot of progressives, I was on the Bernie Sanders campaign a few years ago. A lot of us moved into the DEC, the Democratic Party, and have really shifted it to the left and made it a more caring kind of place. I think I'm getting my footing there. I'm an events person. I invite people, come to this event, come to that. I get different groups to go to each other's events, and to make each, like Kevin said, rather than everybody in a silo, we can make all the groups stronger if we all support one another. So that's kind of what I work on here.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. But I should look. Yeah, I should look back and again at your website and see. I mean, what I do, I get Tikkun. I love Michael Lerner's or whoever he's presenting that comes through the email whenever there's a crisis. Whatever you send is always the most brilliant. I just love to hear from you guys. Yeah, you too, Kat. In fact, one group that just formed recently. I know. Well, it's a group of women who just don't like the kind of what's the word, political climate, the way people treat each other. Has gotten so full of hatred and everything. And so we're trying. It's a powerful group of women, who are powerful in their own way. We get together once every few weeks. How can we make a difference in the civics? In the civic behavior, how people treat each other in the political realm. And we took your article, Kat, something about profit and empathy, that you wrote in Tikkun. I printed that for them. I thought that was wonderful. That it wasn't sufficient just to be empathetic, but to be prophetic, to share also your vision. Yeah. And they like that. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's what we do in the training more than we did in the first training that you took. So excellent, Marilyn. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, just letting you see what I'm here. If anybody wants support from Gainesville, I know our Medicaid expansion effort just fell apart because of the I don't know if Kevin and
Yep,
Fred
well
are-
aware.
I want to jump in because I know.
heartbroken. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
the
be in
heartbreaking.
I'll be in
We
touch
worked
with
so
you,
hard
Marilyn.
and suddenly, yeah.
I'll be in touch with you, Marilyn.
Thank you so much,
Okay, good.
Marilyn. Herbert, go ahead. And
Okay.
I just want to let folks know that I put a link to the brochure without the Trumpism language in the chat. Hang on, Herbert, let me unmute you.
I agree,
again.
and I had a practical question for Fred and Kevin, and I wanted to know how you went about getting started, and also how you sustain yourselves.
So show up. I don't know if you. That's not. I mean, that's it. Just show up. Show
But
up.
do you mean a chapter in particular?
Yes, yeah.
So Fred, you want?
Yeah, Herbert, what I did is I created a flyer, which kind of talked about the new bottom line and how are you interested in a world where we would shift from the old bottom line to the new bottom line. I think that was in the starter guide. I used a lot of that to do that. And I sent it out to the people I know on my email list. As I said, I had a church. I went to my board. We talked about it. So I promoted it within the church. And the people that I had contacted, then Kevin helped with that. The first meeting was an introduction meeting, talking about the NSP. As I said, we showed Rabbi Lerner's video. We talked about some of the main points, and then we set up a monthly meeting. And I think, as Kevin said, I think one of the things that sustains it is that we have a specific time each month that we're going to gather. And so people know that on the third Saturday of every month we're going to meet, and so and then we send out. People say they don't get the email, but we send out reminders. We put it on our Facebook page. I posted at my church. When we have events, we have a local news. I don't even know what you call it. Flyer, a magazine that comes out every week in the neighborhood, and they usually put our stuff in there with it. And so it's just a matter of continuing to do it, as Kevin said, show up and just know that every seed that we plant has a chance of growing.
Okay, thank you.
And like when we did the Knock Down the House, the AOC movie last month, there was we probably had 25 people there, and about 10 of them just came to see the movie. They didn't know who the NSP was. So those kind of events where you get people to come and have exposure, is a good opening.
Okay.
And to get out in the community and do table stuff. And so you can talk about it there and have, the flyers when the next meeting is and stuff like that. So
I put in the chat, in addition to the link to the flyer without the overcoming Trumpism language, I also put in there a link to the starter guide, which has some helpful information, and also one video of Rabbi Lerner speaking about don't being realistic. But the YouTube page has a bunch of videos. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, because the one I put in there's a really old one of him. I don't know if that's the one you showed, Fred. But if it's not, you can always email to me, and I can put it on the training page also for the training group.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So welcome, Nina. I have to wrap us up because we said an hour and I have another thing to attend to. How are you, Nina? Nice to see you. It's been recorded, so I will send out the recording. Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments? I want to thank Kevin and Fred in particular for sharing your insights and learnings, and to everyone, of course, for showing up and for your questions and for all that you are doing and trying to do.
Thank you. I have a request. Do you have any leads, any people I should reach out to in my area?
Oh, thank you for asking that question, because I meant to say this and now you've reminded me. So in everybody's area, we probably have at least a few people, depending on where you are, who are on our list. And so what we do is, if you're wanting to start a chapter or possibly explore starting a chapter, or talk to people who are interested in talking about this and seeing what to do with it, you send me an email.
Okay.
And I will send it to the folks. Send me an email and let me know where you live, your zip code, and how far you think people travel around where you live. Because for some locations that's 30 miles, for some locations it's 60 miles or whatever. Just give me an idea. And then we will send your email out with your email and stuff to folks in your area, saying whatever it is you want to say. And I might edit it, like you send it to me and we might go back and forth on the languaging of it a bit. But I also think there might be on the training page a link to a sample email. But if not, you probably could figure out how to write one, or you can always ask.
I should be able to. I'll work on it this weekend.
Great.
And the national chair of an interfaith or
Yeah, there is an email in the starting guide, and Kat, I'll send you the video link that I have.
Okay.
Show. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
I have just an awareness that I'm noticing that I'm a little gun shy on Medicare for All, having to do with my experiences in community mental health, where people really needed Medicaid. So I don't know, we're wrapping up now, but I wonder if you have an article or a discussion that I could link into, because I'm finding myself just remembering how people getting kicked off Medicaid and only on Medicare, and it did not work. So they thought they were fine, and then they were not as fine. So I have this, just a block around it. And also that I'm a clinical counselor, I can't even bill Medicare. And that's got to be part of the fix, or our whole mental health system collapse.
This has to be way more comprehensive. So I don't know that issue. One of my responses to this kind of will gradually move there, or there'll still be choice for people.
Gradual works better for my.
One of the challenges of that, though, is that as long as there's still a free market available, then Medicare will always be inadequate, because it'll always be less than what is possible. Whereas if the whole thing flips over, then we're talking about providing an entire different level of care. In other words, if doctors and nurses and other people can get better pay through employer-backed insurance plans, then they won't join Medicare. And so it'll significantly limit the availability of what Medicare actually looks like. So I think the answer, at least part of my answer to what you're saying with my limited understanding, is absolutely, when we talk about Medicare for all, we have to talk about I mean, if you read our stuff on healthcare, we're talking about a much more holistic approach. I mean, for me, it has to include homeopathic care, Chinese medicine care, nutrition care. I mean, it has to actually address healthcare, not illness management.
Right, and no donut hole and blah, 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 which, that was still there the last I noticed, and that kills people. That damn thing kills people. It's ridiculous.
So, I mean, I think we're at the point now where we push for healthcare as a human right. And then, because the specific you can get, again, you can go into a silo and you can start arguing about different, ways to implement. But if we build a consensus of healthcare as a human right, that's a pretty good starting point.
So we're not talking about Medicare as it currently exists, which is half a health plan as far as I'm concerned. We're talking about it being the mechanism to give everyone solid health care. That's a good way for me to think of it and present it, because otherwise I'm not behind it. So good. Okay.
I'm going to put a link right now really quickly just from our Path to Love and Justice, particularly on the healthcare system, just so you can think about it in a broader way and maybe speak about it in that way, and it might help you. Do you see it? Yeah. Okay. I'll also include the chat, although Marilyn, I will not include I'll cut out your information in the chat when I share the chat with folks. Okay. Anything else?
Take us out with a little meditation, Kat.
Okay. Can it be a blessing or a meditation? What do you want?
Whatever you want.
Okay. First, thank you all. I love it. Nourishes my soul to be in community with you all from afar and to be together. So thanks for showing up. So let's envision us all as sparks of light that shine and illuminate the possibilities of a truly transformed and loving world. And that as we share those sparks of lights within us that so yearn for and crave that world, that it both lights up for us and reminds us it's possible, inspires us, and nourishes us to continue to work toward this vision and this new world. And that as our lights connect, they spread in farther and farther and larger circles, like the setting sun over the entire planet, so that we, in our lifetime, actually see significant transformations in consciousness and in reality to a truly loving and just and caring world for all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Many blessings.
Yeah, likewise.
And so we do these calls once a month on Wednesdays at this time, and on Mondays I do them at noon Pacific time on I think it's the second Monday of the month, but you'll all get emails. Okay.
Thank you so much. Be well, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.